In this episode, Dr. Rob and Cory Davis talk about cholesterol in coconut oil and the difference between MCT oils and coconut oil.
So when I'm skeptical when the government comes out with any pronouncement regarding a nutrient. You know, these are the people that think that a synthetic vitamin C is the exact same thing as a natural form vitamin C. They're also the same people that put all saturated fats in the same category, that if it's saturated, it's bad. It doesn't matter to them if it's an MCT oil or a lard or a hydrogenated fat. For them, saturated fats are all bad. So I can't automatically jump on the bandwagon with anything that uses that perspective whenever it's making a decision about something like coconut oil. So I'm first skeptical. Second, I'm waiting for more information to come out. And I haven't actually read the report to know what is it that they're saying causes this increase in bad cholesterol from using it. I don't know if you spend any time with it, but I just categorically said no way, because the argument that saturated fat increases LDL cholesterol automatically, to me, has been disproven through a lot of other science that may not be represented here.
The bottom line for me in these articles is when people talk about, so here's the way I look at it. I look at it as it doesn't matter because they're looking at cholesterol itself wrong. That's how I look at it. Actually,
yeah, explain that.
So that's exactly what I talk about in the book. So my idea is when I look at fat, when I link essentially inflammation, sugar, and stress with fat, and I use cholesterol as a focal point because I think it's one of the most important molecule that we produce in the body. We can't survive without it. It's just such an important molecule.
It's the master hormone, right?
Absolutely. It's the mother of all steroid hormones. All your steroid hormones come from cholesterol. And what you do to that cholesterol is really, it makes a huge impact. It's not necessarily cholesterol. We need cholesterol. We produce cholesterol. So it's what happens to cholesterol. When you damage cholesterol, you make cholesterol behave badly. And over a long period of time, that can contribute to chronic disease via so many different things. And I talk about that in the book. I go into detail using personal stories, and I add in some science here and there, and I sort of hopefully make it a little bit relatable. But essentially with coconut oil, is it possible that coconut oil can increase LDL? It's possible. I don't know if it can, but it's possible in the same way that unfiltered coffee can. If you consume too much of it over a long time, it doesn't provide you with LDL cholesterol at all, but it can increase the production from the liver. Right. And then ultimately you need to assess yourself whether, look, if you have high cholesterol in the family and your liver is producing more cholesterol and you're not eating that healthy, or you're not watching yourself, and you're not getting regularly tested for your lipid panel, essentially your cholesterol and fat panel, essentially through your blood, you could wake up one morning, you can go to the doctor's appointment one day and realize, oh my God, your cholesterol is so high. We have to do something drastic or else. I mean, you could stroke out, you could have a heart attack. When your cholesterol is too high, really too high, you are at risk of heart disease. Not even first of all, just the sheer amount of the cholesterol, but also what can happen to it. And especially over a long period of time. So people within the natural health industry who think that they know better, that it's not cholesterol, it's what happens to cholesterol, inflammation and all this stuff. At the end of the day, you still have to respect magnitude. If your cholesterol is way too high, it's way too high. You got to lower it. You got to bring it down. You got to respect it. But at the same time, we have to put into context, to your point about coconut oil, first of all, it's not a source of cholesterol. Plus, coconut oil has so many benefits. Coconut oil itself has many antioxidants, anti-inflammatory compounds to help support and nourish the immune system and the inflammatory response. It has a high smoking point to begin with. It's very resistant. It's resilient and resistant in the body to becoming oxidized. So from a heart healthy fat, sorry, I just shook the camera. From a heart healthy fat in moderation, along with a variety of other fats, I think coconut oil is one of the best things you can consume in terms of an energy source. I think people go too far though. They buy these massive tubs of coconut oil at Costco and they consume it as though it's a food. You're consuming. People do. They consume
like ice cream, right?
Yeah, like ice cream. They'll put, first of all, that's what they will do that in desserts. They'll use spoonfuls of coconut oil and make a dessert out of it.
I'm getting all the benefits. Yeah.
And you think you're not going to contribute to chronic disease. You're out of your mind.
Just that, the sheer handling of something that is magnitudes higher than what is normally just, imagine your body as this evolutionary machine that in the past we would have never had access to that amount of coconut oil is still a refined food. Any oil that's been extracted has gone through at least one refining process, which it used to be a whole food. Now it's a slightly less of a whole food. It may be full spectrum, right? And have all those full spectrum benefits or not, but it's one step down from being in a coconut. So imagine our evolutionary body was not able to press a ton of coconuts and then just eat that. It's just totally out of the context of what would be considered normal. So I think that there's that empirical component to, back up the fact that we shouldn't think that dosing a lot of something like a fat could ever be good, right? I mean, I can't think of any instance where a huge amount of fat is actually beneficial for the body.
Zero. Well, if you live in the Arctic.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So extreme circumstances,
extreme circumstances. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you need fat. Otherwise you get cold too easy. It's a survival tool. You need, that's why they eat
for energy.
For energy, but even for thermogenesis to keep your metabolism up so that you're heating yourself. I mean, the temperatures are so low over there. It's, that you could die easily of frostbite. So
I see.
Of like hypothermia.
So if you are living in the Arctic, then maybe
you have to. You need seal blubber. Yeah, absolutely. But for all of us, when we're living these oxidative, inflammatory lifestyles, and you're consuming, first of all, it's not even just fat. Any energy source, sugars and carbs. When you take bread and you put it in a toaster, and that bread turns brown, you're changing the chemical composition of that energy source. The sugar is turning brown. You're oxidizing. You're creating all sorts of chemicals. Acrylamide is something that we've discussed in a previous podcast vlog. But any one of them, carbs, if you take potatoes and you boil them versus baking them versus heating them on the fire, you're oxidizing the energy source. And that is very, very damaging. It might taste amazing, but it's very, very damaging to human health. So you're taking that energy source, very, very different effects. When you have oils like coconut oil or butter or olive oil or grapeseed oil, some of them have much higher smoke points. So you think, I can cook higher on that. No, you should never cook high on any oil, period. Ever. You should just never, ever do it. And zero oil is it might be resistant in the sense it won't smoke up, which is like the worst. But you really shouldn't. Ideally, you shouldn't even be cooking with oils at all. The only reason why we do is because food sticks, it burns, and that's maybe even worse. So a lot of these nonstick pans are being used. Some are better than others. That's a topic in of itself too. Something I talk about in the book as well, where and I don't mean to like plug the book or anything, but this was all on my mind in terms of the cooking process, how to create, what to look for. There's a lot of chemicals that go into these nonstick surfaces, right? Like Teflon and so forth. So, but any oil, and I think that's the point that wasn't really elaborated on. And I think people just miss that. They go too extreme when it comes to fats and coconut oil. I think ultimately coconut oil is a very, very healthy fat, healthy heart healthy fat, but in moderate amounts. And
not super high heated.
Absolutely.
Don't be deep frying in it. We all
the
want
fact
deep fried
that it's
foods, but
the fact that it's more resistant to heat, all the more reason why you should not heat it, because then you're going to be taking more advantage of an oil. So if you just have a little dollop in your coffee, it's not super hot. Hopefully, otherwise you'll burn the crema and you'll create a disgusting gray color. You don't want that. No,
you don't want to be trashy like that.
Ugh, that bitter, disgusting taste of coffee. Come on, we're better than that.
Nasty.
Right. So, you got to keep it at about 194, 195 Fahrenheit. Make sure you got the thermometer in there.
Every time.
Right. And then you add some coconut oil in there for a little zip. But yeah.
Speaking of that, so people have even taken that concept to a whole new arena. And this, we can blame Dave Asprey for this, who invented bulletproof coffee, which has become so popular. Most people you bring it up, they'll have some idea of what you're talking about, even if it's not by name. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, that stuff that jacks your brain up, that's made with coconut oil and coffee as a combination." So this became a very popular cocktail. Still is trending, is very popular. And I know my problem with it as supplements coach, as somebody who really watches out for the processing that goes into making something like a supplement, especially something like MCT oil, which can be derived in many ways. MCT oil, of course, can come from, I think the Dave Asprey method is a distillation. Cooking it to distillation temperatures to be able to basically fractionate the fatty acid spectrum to get rid of, let's say, that percentage of other fatty acids that are part of the whole food, coconut oil, and the caprylic and monolauric acids, and then focus on just that MCT, medium chain triglyceride molecule, which is actually much more liquidy, liquefied, and less solid or saturated than the other more saturated compounds. So it typically looks like water when you look at a bottle of it. So even though it may be naturally derived, another process, of course, would be just total solvent extraction, which I'm sure some people who sell MCT oil are not even using distillation, but just sheer solvent processing to make MCT oil. So I'll just come out and say, of course, I'm not a fan of any highly processed food, even if it's called a supplement, even if it's been associated with temporary health claims. Let's remember, when you take something like bulletproof coffee and you're experiencing the high of the brain on MCT oil, this is not necessarily health. This is just an effect. And it's easy to associate the two, that if you feel like you're having an enhanced brain experience, they're also having an enhanced health experience. But it's very important for you not to put those two things together. Think of a refined food like MCT or sugar or anything that's been processed down into a singlet molecule as closer to a drug-like experience than a health experience. So that's my basic way in for the idea of something like a bulletproof coffee, which I don't know if you've seen the recipe, Rob, but it definitely goes against your policy of massive amounts of fat. Because not only does it contain like 2 tablespoons, I think, of MCT oil, but I think at least a tablespoon or 2 of cultured animal fats as well, combined into like a very small dose. So it's a very, very high fat item. So what do you think about this?
So it's a lot. You have to think 120 calories per tablespoon of fat.
Okay.
That's a lot. It is a lot. Now, if you weigh 250 pounds and you're a bodybuilder, maybe not. It's all in context. If you're 140 pounds and you're in shape, but you're not an extreme athlete, it's very different compared to then even the person who's out of shape and 140, 180 pounds, whatever. Very, very different contextually. But what I do know is human beings are so vain. I know because I'm one of them. We think that food, antioxidants within food were put on this earth for us. Mm-hmm. And they weren't. They were put on this earth to protect the energy source. That's right. Why they're there.
The host.
Yeah. Absolutely. So when you look at an orange, the only reason why – I'm speaking as though I know. I don't really know. This is just a theory. Sure. Disclaimer right there. But I think it's a pretty good one. I believe
you're not the ultimate creator of the universe. We understand.
Absolutely. I told you I have a big ego. I mean, what can I tell you? And that's why I love the show so much, because basically it's just massaging each other's ego for an entire hour. I mean, you can't get better.
That's why we love it so much. It's obvious.
All week our egos just get smashed into oblivion. We're just hustling all week, working.
But this hour is about our egos.
We just get elevated,
to fill them back up. They get knocked down, so you got to nourish them.
100%. But when you look at a food like an orange or even good quality bread, real sourdough, nutrient-dense breads, I believe that one of the major reasons why they're so nutrient-dense and rich full of antioxidants is to help protect the energy itself, to protect the sugars from oxidizing. That's why they're there. So same with coconut oil, and olive oil, the more that's another thing I discuss is that with olive oil, I started looking at, not in a lot of detail, but just moderately, at different olive oil producers. And the more you think you know about an oil like olive oil, you just realize that, wow, that rabbit hole goes so deep. The level of expertise you see every once in a while, if you go to Costco and you see olive oil, they have like the olive oil like kiosk, I guess, come up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So instead of spending your normal amount on olive oil, whatever the regular price is, you'll spend double the triple, and it's much higher quality. Well, you could spend quintuple and so forth, just like with wine. It goes way, 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 way up there. Mm-hmm. And you just learned so much about it. And these oils have so many different benefits. There's charts and charts and charts, antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer. Mm-hmm. The list just goes on and on and on and on and on. These properties, though, were not necessarily put so that they help with animal life. I mean, that might just be a side benefit to consuming these foods, but
sure,
primarily I believe they're there to protect the oil itself. So you have coconut oil, you have medium chain triglycerides, MCT oil. In the context of whole coconut oil, you have all of these incredible beneficial compounds that help prevent that oil from being damaged. When you strip that away, first of all, I mean, with Supplement Coach, you're mentoring people all the time about different processing methods on supplements. I know because you and I discuss this quite frequently. And it's so valuable because people really have to know what they're putting in their bodies in terms of processing. It's so important. So that's one aspect. MCT is a process isolated compound, to your point. And you probably have to, there's the distillation, but then, you have to use chemicals to rip it out and you're refining it. But at the end of the day too, besides the level of processing, you're left with a naked MCT oil that doesn't really have anything in there to protect it. Then it goes naked into the body where all of the different
other synergistic compounds that protect it, right,
is gone, right? So you don't have that protective mechanism. And so you have so many different other oxidative mechanisms in the body that can destroy that oil too. If you just went for a workout, for example, which is what Asprey is sort of recommending this for, right before or after a workout as an energy source to give you that boost you need.
Right.
After an intense workout, you're creating a ton of free radicals in the body. You're creating a lot of oxidative stress. If you just take in fat right afterwards, and sometimes it can be useful as an energy source, if you're taking a naked fat or you're not consuming a lot of antioxidants with that, that fat is destined to become pro-inflammatory.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
And over time, that leads to chronic disease, heart disease. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you put it into an environment that's highly oxidative due to the free radicals that are available. If your diet's out of balance, you could be causing, an incredibly problematic equation by then saying, hey, free radicals, guess what? We just gave you a nice medium, a bunch of vehicles for you to ride on. Like, you've been just floating around not knowing what to do with your life. Don't worry, we've got that taken care of now. We just introduced a bunch of great fat for you to go in and destroy and be a part of and have some meaning in your life and purpose.
And that can happen anyway, even if you just take pure, raw, organic coconut oil. If you take copious amounts right after a workout, the same holds true, but at least the oil is somewhat protected. You have all these antioxidants and other things protecting it. But when you just have naked MCT processed oil, ooh, baby, you better watch out.
There's no long-term or human or animal studies done on isolated MCT oil that have any kind of introspection into understanding what goes on the molecular level regarding oxidation. Oxygenation.
Yeah.
Oxidation. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah. So anybody who's taking that stuff right now, our advice is to definitely not do that, because even though you're feeling temporary benefits, nobody knows over time in regular use what's going to happen. It could create massive amount of neurological damage over time once those, obviously they're easily shuttled through metabolic pathways, perhaps into the brain, the liver. So imagine if they're being shuttled with this oxidated form, this pro-inflammatory, pro-disease version of this MCT oil, who knows what's going on. But most likely it's going to be disease, right?
Absolutely. You want variety in moderate amounts of very, very high quality fats. And there are various things that you would do to look at it. You could probably spend a half hour to an hour with somebody and just tell them exactly what to look for, different brands, what to ask, all of those things that you do, which is why I think what you do is so amazing at Supplements Coach. But that's what it is. I think it's a variety in moderate amounts from credible, great sources. That's it.
I love it.